The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had not seen such chaos in 10,000 years. Representatives from across known space filled the massive chamber, their various forms creating a sea of colors, shapes, and sizes that would have been beautiful if not for the fear that hung in the air like smoke. Ambassador Zexathera stood at the center podium, her 6 arms trembling as she held the ancient crystalline data core. The hegemony representative had spent weeks preparing for this moment. But now that it was here, she could barely find her voice. "Council members," she began, her translator device converting her clicks and whistles into the common tongue. "What I am about to show you will change everything we thought we knew about our galaxy." The massive holographic display above the assembly flickered to life. Ancient star charts appeared, showing territories and boundaries that no living being recognized. The dates made several council members lean forward in confusion. 50,000 years ago, before most of their civilizations had even developed spaceflight. "These records," Zexathera continued, "were found in the deepest vaults of our homeworld. They have been sealed for so long that we had forgotten they existed, until 3 days ago when our sensors detected something that should have been impossible." The star chart zoomed in on a small yellow star on the outer rim of the galaxy, a system marked with symbols that pulsed red in the ancient display. Sol Earth, the quarantine zone. We detected ships, human ships, beyond their solar system. The chamber erupted. Voices in a dozen languages filled the air as representatives demanded explanations, denials, anything that would make this news less terrifying. But they didn't even know why they were terrified yet. Fleet Commander Korthak of the Zephyrian Empire stood slowly, his tall blue form towering over most of the other delegates. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their military precision and tactical brilliance. He had won battles that others thought impossible. But as he looked at the ancient records, his usually steady voice cracked slightly. "Show them the war footage," he said simply. Zexathera's arms shook as she activated the next section of the crystal core. The holographic display changed, showing scenes of battle from 50 millennia ago. Ships engaged in combat, planets burning, the usual horrors of war that every species knew too well. But something was wrong with these battles, something that made even veteran warriors like Korthak feel sick to their stomachs. The human ships were smaller than their enemies, weaker. Their weapons were less advanced. By every measure of military science, they should have been crushed within hours. Instead, they were winning. Not just winning, but dominating battles against forces 10 times their size. "Watch their tactics," Korthak said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Watch how they fight." The footage showed a human ship surrounded by enemy vessels. Any rational commander would surrender or try to escape. Instead, the human vessel began spinning, using its own rotation to spread weapons fire in all directions while ramming 2 enemy ships. As it exploded, the humans broadcast a message that the ancient translators had recorded. "Tell them we're just getting started." Another scene showed human ground forces vastly outnumbered on some forgotten world. The enemy had better armor, better weapons, better training. The humans had improvised explosives made from their own supply containers and tactics that no military academy would ever teach. They turned their medical supplies into chemical weapons, their communication equipment into jamming devices, and their food rations into incendiary grenades. They were laughing as they fought. Even as they died, they were laughing. "This is impossible," muttered Council Member Vorthak, his tentacles writhing in distress. "No species fights like this. No rational being takes such risks." "That's exactly the point," Zexathera replied. "Humans aren't rational. Not in the way we understand the word. Our ancestors discovered that 50,000 years ago, and it nearly destroyed the galaxy." The holographic display changed again, showing the final stages of the ancient war. Human forces had spread across dozens of systems, not through superior technology or numbers, but through sheer, terrifying unpredictability. They used their own ships as weapons. They turned peaceful colony vessels into deadly traps. They taught their tactics to other species, sparking rebellions across the galaxy. "The war ended not because we defeated them," Zexathera continued, "but because they chose to stop. The treaty wasn't our victory. It was their mercy." She activated the final section of the crystal, showing the signing of the ancient Armistice. The human representative was a small figure compared to the massive alien delegates around the table, but every other being in the room was clearly terrified of this one small creature. The terms were simple. Humanity would remain in their solar system. They would not expand beyond it. In exchange, the galaxy would leave them alone. Forever. For 50,000 years this treaty held, Zexathara said. Humanity stayed in their system. We thought they had become peaceful. We thought they had forgotten what they were. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every species represented here owed their current existence to human mercy. For 50 millennia, the most dangerous predators in the galaxy had been contained by nothing more than their own word. And now? Asked Korthak, though he already knew the answer. Now they're out there again, Zexathara replied. Our deep space monitors detected human vessels 3 light-years beyond their system boundary. The Armistice is broken. Council member Thexri of the Collective raised her voice, her hive mind speaking as one. Perhaps they are simply exploring. Perhaps they have forgotten the old ways. Korthak shook his head, studying the ancient battle records with the eye of a professional soldier. Look at their ship designs. Look at how they modified civilian vessels for combat in minutes. Look at how they smiled while they died. He turned to face the assembly. These are not the tactics of a species that forgets. These are the tactics of a species that was born for war. The implications were clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity had spent 50,000 years in isolation, but they hadn't been idle. They had been evolving, developing, preparing, and now they were free. What do we do? Asked Ambassador Yithmol, her voice barely audible through her translator. Korthak was already calculating fleet movements in his head. We end this before it begins. We send the largest fleet in galactic history to Sol. We destroy them before they remember what they are capable of. And if they already remember? Asked Zexathara. The fleet commander looked at the ancient footage again, watching human warriors laugh as they died for the chance to take their enemies with them. Then we pray to whatever gods we believe in that they still have mercy left in them. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, fleets from across the galaxy began moving towards Sol. The largest military force in recorded history, united for the first time in millennia by a single purpose, the complete destruction of humanity. As the council members filed out of the chamber, none of them noticed the small detail that Korthak had spotted in the ancient records. In every battle, no matter how desperate, no matter how outnumbered, the humans had always kept some ships back. They had always held reserves. For 50,000 years, the galaxy had assumed those reserves were for defense. But Korthak knew better. Those reserves weren't for defense. They were for learning. Every battle humanity lost taught them something new. Every defeat was just research for the next victory. And they had had 50,000 years to study those old lessons. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations detected the massive fleet movements toward Sol. The signals traveled at light speed, carrying news of the coming war to the small blue world where humanity had been waiting. On Earth, in military installations that hadn't been active for centuries, old computers began to wake up. Ancient defense protocols written by people whose names had been forgotten by history started to activate. And in the genetic memory of every human on the planet, something that had been sleeping for 50 millennia began to stir. The war that had ended with mercy was about to begin again. But this time the humans had had time to prepare. This time they had learned from their mistakes. This time they were smiling. The colony ship New Horizon drifted peacefully through space, 3 light-years from Earth. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the massive viewing port. After 18 months of travel, her crew of 12,000 colonists was finally approaching their new home system. Sarah was proud of what humanity had accomplished. The ship itself was a marvel of engineering, powered by fusion drives and equipped with the most advanced life support systems Earth could build. More importantly, it carried the hopes and dreams of people who wanted to spread human civilization to the stars. "Captain," called out Navigation Officer Martinez from his station, "we're receiving a transmission." It's not from Earth." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. In all of human history, they had never encountered another intelligent species. The discovery of alien life would change everything. "Put it through," she ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature unlike anything in Earth's databases. It was tall and thin with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms. When it spoke, the words were translated by the ship's computer into perfect English. "Human vessel, this is Fleet Commander Korthak of the Zephyrian Empire, acting under authority of the Galactic Council. You have violated the terms of the Sol Quarantine Treaty established 50,000 years ago. You will immediately return to your home system or face destruction. The bridge fell silent. Sarah stared at the alien commander, trying to process what she had just heard. 50,000 years ago? She repeated. I'm sorry, Commander, but there must be some mistake. Humanity has no record of any previous contact with alien species. We've never signed any treaty. The alien's expression darkened. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse for breaking it. You have 1 hour to begin your return journey to Sol. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your vessel. Wait, Sarah said quickly. Please, let's discuss this. We're explorers, not warriors. We're looking for a new world to call home. We don't want any conflict. The time for discussion ended when you crossed the boundary, Korthak replied. 1 hour, human. Use it wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew staring at a blank screen. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to understand what was happening. A treaty from 50,000 years ago. That was impossible. 50,000 years ago, humans were barely more than primitive hunter-gatherers. Captain, reported Science Officer Dr. Patel, I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching our position. Whatever they are, they're big. Sarah nodded grimly. How long until they reach us? 58 minutes. Sarah looked around at her crew. These were good people. Scientists, engineers, teachers, doctors, artists. They had left Earth to build something beautiful on a distant world. They weren't soldiers. Options? She asked. We could try to run, suggested Martinez. Our fusion drive is pretty advanced. Maybe we can outrun them. Dr. Patel shook his head. The energy signatures are moving too fast. They'll catch us before we can reach significant velocity. What about weapons? Asked Security Chief Williams. We have mining charges for asteroid clearing, Sarah replied. Some industrial lasers. Nothing designed for combat. She made her decision. Open a channel to the entire ship. Everyone needs to know what's happening. Minutes later, Sarah stood before cameras that broadcast her image throughout the new horizon. 12,000 colonists watched as their captain explained the impossible situation they faced. I won't lie to you, she concluded. We're outgunned and outnumbered. But we're human beings. We don't give up easy. What happened next would have surprised the aliens if they had been monitoring human communications. Instead of panic, instead of despair, something strange began to spread through the ship. In engineering, Chief Engineer Kim looked at her mining charges and began calculating explosive yields. In the workshops, craftsmen started welding metal plates to the outside of maintenance vehicles. In the labs, scientists began mixing chemicals that weren't supposed to be mixed, and throughout the ship, people began to smile. Sarah didn't understand it herself, but she felt it too. A strange excitement, as if some part of her had been sleeping her entire life and was finally waking up. The impossible odds didn't terrify her. They energized her. Sir, reported Williams, we're receiving volunteer requests from every department. People want to help fight. Fight with what? Sarah asked. Everything. Williams replied with a grin that looked almost savage. The farmers want to weaponize their fertilizer. The teachers are designing tactics based on historical Earth battles. The musicians say they can use the ship's communication array to create sonic weapons. Sarah stared at him. That's insane. Yes, ma'am. Want to hear the really crazy part? I think it might actually work. The alien fleet appeared on their sensors exactly 1 hour after the ultimatum. 50 ships, each one larger and more heavily armed than the New Horizon. Any rational captain would have surrendered immediately. Instead, Sarah Chen opened a communication channel to the alien fleet and said something that would be remembered across the galaxy for generations. Fleet Commander Korthak, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel New Horizon. We have considered your ultimatum and our answer is simple. Come and take us. Then she did something that made Korthak's blood run cold. She laughed. The battle began immediately. The alien ships opened fire with weapons that could have vaporized the New Horizon instantly. But somehow the colony ship survived the first salvo. Its hull was covered in a strange pattern of metal plates and containers that absorbed or deflected the energy beams. How are they still alive? Demanded Korthak's tactical officer. They're using their cargo containers as reactive armor, Korthak replied, his voice filled with growing dread. They've turned their entire ship into a weapon. The New Horizon began to move not away from the alien fleet, but toward it. The ship spun as it flew, firing improvised weapons in all directions. Mining lasers designed to cut asteroids sliced through alien hull plating. Explosive charges meant for construction work punched holes in enemy ships. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," reported the communications officer. "What are they saying?" They're sharing their battle plans. With everyone. They're teaching other humans how to fight us." Korthak watched in horror as the New Horizon rammed one of his smaller ships. The impact destroyed both vessels, but not before the humans transmitted every detail of the attack back to Earth. Their sacrifice had become a lesson for their species. They're not trying to win, Korthak realized. They're trying to learn. The battle lasted 6 minutes. When it was over, the New Horizon was nothing but debris scattered across space. All 12,000 colonists were dead. But their sacrifice had accomplished something that would doom the galaxy. They had awakened humanity. On Earth, the transmission from the New Horizon reached every major population center within hours. The message was simple. We are not alone in the universe, and the aliens want us dead. The response was immediate and terrifying in its unity. For the first time in human history, every nation, every government, every military force on the planet began working toward the same goal. In military academies that had been studying theoretical warfare for centuries, instructors pulled out manuals that seemed to write themselves. Tactics that no human had ever used before appeared in their minds as clearly as childhood memories. At the United Earth Space Command, Admiral Rebecca Torres looked at readouts showing massive alien fleets moving toward Sol, and felt something she had never experienced before. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was excitement. "Ma'am," reported her aide, "recruitment centers across the planet are reporting unprecedented numbers. We've had more volunteers in the past 6 hours than we usually get in a year." "How many?" Torres asked. 200 million and counting." Torres smiled, and for the first time in her life she understood why her grandmother used to say that war was in human blood. She had always thought it was just an old saying. Now she knew it was genetic memory. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations detected something that would have terrified the Galactic Council if they had known about it. The gravitational signatures around Sol were changing. Something was moving in the asteroid belt, something massive. The 50,000-year armistice was over. Humanity was awake, and they were no longer content to stay in one small system. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They had assumed that 50,000 years of peace had made humans soft. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Dr. Elena Vasquez had always been fascinated by the human brain. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had spent her career studying life forms from the deepest oceans and highest mountains. But now, 6 months after first contact with the aliens, she was studying something far more disturbing. "The neural pathways are completely different," she explained to the assembled crowd of scientists and military officers. "Every alien species we've captured shows specialized brain development. The Zephyrians have enhanced tactical processing centers. The Kethmori have expanded sections for ritual and honor. The collective operates as a true hive mind." She gestured to the holographic brain scans floating above the conference table. "But humans? We're generalists. Our brains refuse to specialize. Where other species evolve to be perfect at one thing, we evolve to be adequate at everything." General Marcus Stone, Earth's newly appointed commander of interstellar operations, leaned forward. "What does that mean for the war effort?" "It means we can weaponize anything," Elena replied. "Our brains don't distinguish between tools and weapons, between defense and offense, between rational and irrational tactics. To us, everything is just a problem to be solved." As if to prove her point, reports began flooding in from across the solar system. The transformation of human space was happening faster than anyone had believed possible. On Mars, the terraforming stations had been converted into massive weapons factories. The same atmospheric processors designed to create breathable air were now producing chemical weapons that could poison entire worlds. The mining equipment that had carved tunnels through Martian rock was being modified to bore holes through alien ship hulls. In the asteroid belt, construction robots worked around the clock to hollow out rocks and fill them with nuclear warheads. Each asteroid became a guided missile capable of destroying fleets. The mining stations that had provided Earth with rare metals for centuries were now producing materials for weapons that existed only in human imagination, but it was Jupiter's moons that truly showcased human adaptability. Europa's ice mining stations became torpedo factories. Io's volcanic energy collectors powered weapons that turned heat into focused death beams. And on Ganymede, the agricultural domes that had fed the outer colonies were converted into biological warfare laboratories. The aliens made a mistake, Stone explained to his staff officers. They gave us 6 months to prepare. His second-in-command, Admiral Sarah Chen, sister to the captain who had died aboard the New Horizon, studied the tactical displays with the same smile that was becoming common among human military personnel. What's our fleet status? Officially, we have 200 ships ready for combat, replied Intelligence Officer Colonel Park. Unofficially, we have 2,000 vessels that we've reclassified as mobile industrial platforms and deep space research stations. The aliens don't seem to realize that we can convert a mining ship into a warship in about 6 hours. Stone nodded approvingly. And our secret projects? Titan Base reports that Project Prometheus is ahead of schedule. The orbital shipyards are producing vessels using designs that our engineers swear they never created. They claim the blueprints just appeared in their minds fully formed. Elena had been studying this phenomenon for months. Human military personnel across the solar system were reporting sudden insights into advanced tactics, weapons designs, and strategic thinking that seemed to come from nowhere. Brain scans showed activation in areas that had been dormant for millennia. It's genetic memory, she explained. 50,000 years ago, our species was shaped by warfare. That knowledge was never lost, just suppressed. Now it's awakening. The first test of this awakening came at the Battle of Proxima Station, a small human outpost on the edge of the solar system. A Zephyrian scouting force of 30 ships approached the station, expecting to find a small research facility. Instead, they found something that would become legend throughout the galaxy. Station Commander Lisa Park had a crew of 200 scientists and technicians. No weapons, no military training, no defense systems. When the alien ships appeared, any rational commander would have evacuated or surrendered. Park did something else entirely. All stations. This is Commander Park, she announced over the station's communication system. We have incoming hostiles. Estimated time to contact 20 minutes. I want all departments to implement Emergency Protocol 7. Ma'am, asked her chief engineer. We don't have an Emergency Protocol 7. Park smiled, that strange new smile that was spreading among humans. We do now. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The research station began to move, using its thruster systems to achieve a complex spinning motion. The station's laboratories started venting atmosphere in controlled bursts, creating a cloud of debris around the facility. When the alien ships entered the debris field, they discovered too late that it wasn't random junk. The humans had filled their atmosphere with improvised explosive devices, turning their own air into a weapon. 30 alien ships entered the field. 5 made it out. But that wasn't the most frightening part of the battle. The most frightening part was Commander Park's final transmission. broadcast on all frequencies as her station exploded. Tell your fleet commanders that this was just a warm-up. Earth is coming. The transmission reached the main Zephyrian fleet within hours. Fleet Commander Korthak studied the battle reports with growing unease. His tactical officers offered various explanations for the station's impossible defense, but Korthak knew the truth. The humans weren't just fighting. They were learning. Every battle, every engagement, every skirmish was teaching them something new about their enemies. And they were sharing that knowledge instantly across their entire species. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving signals from the Sol system. The humans are broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Put it through." The main screen showed the face of General Marcus Stone, standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a warship. Behind him, Korthak could see human officers working at stations that looked like they had been improvised from mining equipment. "Fleet Commander Korthak," Stone said, his voice calm and friendly. "My name is General Marcus Stone, Earth Defense Command. I understand you've been having some trouble with our outer stations." Korthak found his voice. "General Stone, your people have violated the quarantine treaty. We are prepared to offer one final chance at surrender." Stone's smile widened. "Oh, we're way past surrender, Commander. See, you made a mistake when you killed Captain Sarah Chen and her colonists. You taught us that there's no reasoning with you. No negotiating. No peaceful coexistence. Then you choose extinction," Korthak replied. "Actually," Stone said, "we choose education." The transmission ended, leaving Korthak staring at a blank screen. Within minutes, his sensor operators began reporting impossible readings from the Sol system. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. It looks like they're moving entire asteroids." "How many ships?" "That's just it, sir. We're not detecting ships. We're detecting construction. They're building something huge." Korthak felt a chill run through his body. The ancient records had mentioned this. Human engineering capabilities that defied explanation. The ability to turn any environment into a weapon. "Get me the Galactic Council," he ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements. All of them." But even as he gave the order, Korthak suspected it was too late. The humans had had 6 months to prepare. 6 months to remember what they were capable of. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, Admiral Rebecca Torres watched displays showing the positions of every human vessel in the solar system. 2,000 ships, each one a floating lesson in human ingenuity and violence. "Ma'am," reported her aide, "Project Prometheus is ready." Torres nodded. "Send the signal." Across the solar system, human vessels began to move. Not toward the approaching alien fleet, but toward predetermined positions throughout the galaxy. The ships moved in patterns that seemed random to alien observers, but human commanders understood the logic. They weren't planning to defend the solar system. They were planning to take the galaxy. The 50,000-year armistice was over. The aliens had awakened something that their ancestors had tried desperately to contain. Humanity was going to war, and this time they were going to finish what they had started 50,000 years ago. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations detected the movement of the human fleet and transmitted the data to alien command centers across the galaxy. The message was simple but terrifying. The humans weren't running. They were coming. The collective had not spoken as one voice for 20,000 years. Across their home worlds, billions of minds that had existed in peaceful separation suddenly joined together. Driven by a fear so ancient that it had been buried in their genetic memory. The eldest, a creature so old that she remembered the first human wars, spoke through 1,000,000 mouths simultaneously. "They are exactly as they were before. No, they are worse. Evolution has made them more creative." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Species that had been at war for centuries signed peace treaties in minutes. Ancient enemies offered military alliance without negotiation. The hegemony, the Zephyrian Empire, the Kethmori clans, and dozens of other civilizations united under a single banner for the first time since the galaxy's formation. Their common enemy had a name: humanity. On the forge world of Titan, Admiral Sarah Chen walked through manufacturing facilities that had not operated at full capacity for 50,000 years. The massive moon buzzed with activity as humans rediscovered technologies that their ancestors had developed for the First Galactic War. Production. Report, she requested from Chief Engineer Kim. We're exceeding all projections, Admiral. Every asteroid in the outer system has been converted into a weapons platform. Jupiter's magnetic field is being weaponized into an electromagnetic pulse generator, and the orbital shipyards are producing vessels faster than our computers can count them. Sarah nodded, watching through reinforced windows as construction robots worked on ships that defied conventional design. These weren't elegant vessels like the aliens built. They were crude, functional, and absolutely deadly. What about the special projects? Kim's expression grew troubled. That's where things get strange, ma'am. Our engineers are building weapons they claim they never designed. The blueprints just appear in their minds. Some of the older workers say it feels like remembering something they learned as children. Sarah understood. She felt it too. The strange knowledge that seemed to flow through her consciousness whenever she looked at a tactical display. Strategies that no human had ever taught her appeared fully formed in her mind. It was as if 50,000 years of warfare was encoded in human DNA, waiting for the right moment to reactivate. The breaking point came at the Battle of Kepler 442, a strategic system halfway between Sol and the galactic core. The aliens had assembled the largest fleet in recorded history, 10,000 ships from every major civilization, united under Fleet Commander Korthak's tactical expertise. They faced a human force of 300 vessels. This is insane, muttered Korthak's second in command, as they watched the human fleet approach. 300 ships against 10,000. They should be running. Korthak studied the tactical displays with growing unease. They're not running because they don't intend to survive this battle. Sir? Look at their formation. Look at their approach vector. They're not trying to win. They're trying to teach their species how to kill us more efficiently. The human fleet was led by the flagship Darwin's Revenge, commanded by Admiral Sarah Chen. Her ship was a perfect example of human engineering philosophy. A converted asteroid hauler fitted with weapons that had been designed in mining equipment factories and powered by reactors that belonged in industrial plants. All ships. This is Admiral Chen, she broadcast to her fleet. Remember, every action we take here will be studied by human commanders for the next 1,000 years. Make it count. The battle began with the aliens' opening salvo. Energy weapons designed to vaporize planets struck the human formation. When the light faded, the aliens expected to see debris. Instead, they saw 300 human ships still approaching, their hulls glowing red-hot, but intact. Impossible, breathed Korthak. No armor can withstand that much concentrated fire. Sir, our sensors are detecting something strange about their hull composition. It appears they've coated their ships with ice. Korthak stared at the readings. Ice. The humans had coated their ships with water ice, creating an ablative armor that absorbed energy by vaporizing. It was crude, simple, and completely effective against directed energy weapons. They've been studying us, he realized. They know exactly what weapons we use. The human fleet closed to ramming distance, and that's when the aliens learned what true horror looked like. The human ships didn't just ram their enemies. They exploded in sequence, creating chain reactions that tore through the alien formation like a firestorm. But the explosions weren't random. Each one was precisely calculated to teach the humans something new about alien ship design, alien tactics, alien psychology. Darwin's revenge to all human vessels, Admiral Chen broadcast as her ship prepared for its final attack. Pattern Delta 7. Let's show them what evolution looks like. The flagship rammed the alien command vessel, but not before uploading terabytes of tactical data to a human monitoring station 20 light-years away. Admiral Chen's sacrifice became a lesson for every human commander in the galaxy. When the Battle of Kepler 442 ended, the aliens had won a tactical victory. The human fleet was destroyed, but strategically, they had lost something far more important: their technological advantage. The humans now knew everything about alien weapons, armor, tactics, and psychology, and they were sharing that knowledge across their entire species at the speed of light. On the prison world of Corvashi, human explorer Tom Martinez had been captured during a diplomatic mission years before the war began. He had spent 3 years learning alien languages, studying alien cultures, and most importantly, earning the trust of other prisoners. When news of the human victory at Kepler 442 reached the prison, Martinez did something that would change the galaxy forever. He began to teach. The key to human tactics, he explained to a mixed group of Kethmori, Zephyrian and collective prisoners, is improvisation. We don't follow rules. We make them up as we go along. Within days, the rebellion had spread to 12 prison worlds. But these weren't ordinary uprisings. The alien prisoners were fighting like humans with improvised weapons and impossible audacity. A Kethmori warrior used his ceremonial armor as an explosive device. A Zephyrian engineer turned the prison's life support system into a chemical weapon factory. A collective drone achieved individual consciousness for the first time in its species' history and used its hive mind connection to coordinate attacks across multiple worlds. The galaxy's oppressed species weren't just rebelling, they were learning to think like humans. Emperor Vorthak, ruler of the hegemony, accessed the deepest archives of his species and discovered records that had been sealed since the first human war. What he read made his tentacles writhe in terror. "They're doing it again," he whispered to his council. "They're teaching other species to fight like they do." The records showed the same pattern from 50,000 years ago. Human tactics spreading like a virus through the galaxy's oppressed populations. Slave worlds rebelling using weapons made from farming equipment. Mining colonies turning their industrial equipment into tools of war. "Your Majesty?" asked his military advisor. "What happened last time?" "The galaxy nearly destroyed itself," Vorthak replied. "The old powers fell. New civilizations rose from the ashes. It took 10,000 years to restore order. And the humans? The humans offered to stop. They said they would return to their home world and never leave it again if we would just stop the killing." The military advisor was confused. But why would they offer that? They were winning. "That's what made them so terrifying," Vorthak explained. "They weren't fighting for conquest or resources or territory. They were fighting because it was what they were born to do. And when they saw what their nature was doing to the galaxy, they chose mercy over victory. Will they choose mercy again?" Vorthak looked at the tactical displays showing human fleets moving throughout the galaxy. Human-trained rebels capturing worlds. Human tactics spreading like wildfire through every oppressed population. "I don't think they're planning to stop this time," he said quietly. In the Sol system, General Marcus Stone stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface. and watched displays showing human forces across the galaxy. His smile had become legendary among his staff, an expression of joy that somehow made him more frightening than any alien warlord. "Status report," he requested. "Human fleets have reached 17 systems," reported Admiral Torres. "Rebel forces using human tactics have liberated 43 worlds. Enemy casualties are exceeding our most optimistic projections. And our casualties. Acceptable. We're losing battles but winning the war." Stone nodded. That was the human way. Every defeat was a lesson. Every sacrifice was an investment in ultimate victory. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Park, "we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting a ceasefire." Stone's smile widened. "Put them through." The screen showed Emperor Vorthak, his tentacles trembling with what might have been fear or rage. "General Stone, I am authorized to offer terms for ending this conflict." "I'm listening," Stone replied pleasantly. "Return to your home system. Accept the quarantine. In exchange, we will withdraw all forces from Sol and restore the previous treaty." Stone was quiet for a moment, considering the offer. Then he began to laugh. Not the cruel laughter of a tyrant, but the genuine amusement of someone who had just heard a particularly good joke. "Emperor Vorthak," he said, 50,000 years ago you were the ones with all the advantages. You had established civilizations, advanced technology, superior numbers, and yet you begged my ancestors to accept quarantine rather than continue the war. The situation has changed, Vorthak protested. "Oh, it has indeed," Stone agreed. "This time we've had 50,000 years to prepare. This time we know exactly what we're fighting, and this time..." Stone's smile became something that would haunt alien nightmares for generations. "This time, we're not planning to show mercy." The final battle for the galaxy began not with the clash of massive fleets, but with a single transmission broadcast across every inhabited world in known space. General Marcus Stone stood before cameras in Earth's primary military command center, his uniform bearing the insignia of a species that had been forgotten by history, but never truly defeated. Behind him, holographic displays showed human forces positioned throughout the galaxy in a pattern that defied military logic. "People of the galaxy," he began, his voice calm and friendly. "My name is General Marcus Stone, representing the species you have known as humanity. For 50,000 years my people honored a treaty that kept us confined to one small system. That treaty is now void. Across 1,000 worlds, alien leaders watched with growing dread. In the background of Stone's transmission, they could see human officers working at stations that looked like they had been assembled from mining equipment and laboratory apparatus. It was a reminder that humans didn't build weapons for war. They built tools that could become anything they needed. Some of you may wonder why we chose to break the quarantine now," Stone continued. "The answer is simple. You taught us that peaceful coexistence is impossible. When you murdered 12,000 human colonists who had never harmed anyone, you reminded us of a truth that we had tried to forget." He paused, and for the first time in the transmission, his smile appeared. It was the expression that had become humanity's signature across the galaxy. A look of genuine joy that somehow made him more terrifying than any snarl or threat. We are what we are, and what we are is very, very good at war. Emperor Vorthak watched the transmission from his flagship at the center of the largest military formation in galactic history. 10 million ships from every major civilization, united for the first time since the galaxy's formation. Surely this would be enough to overwhelm the human threat. "Sir," reported his sensor officer, "we're detecting human fleet movements throughout the system. It appears they're retreating?" Vorthak studied the tactical displays. The human forces, numbering barely 50,000 ships, were indeed pulling back from the main alien fleet. It looked like they were running. "It's a trap," he said quietly. "It has to be." Fleet Commander Korthak, coordinating the alien fleet's tactical operations from his command ship, felt the same unease. Why are they running? They've been advancing for months. Why retreat now? The answer came from an unexpected source, Dr. Elena Vasquez, speaking from a research station orbiting Earth, addressed the alien fleet directly. "Fleet Commander Korthak, Emperor Vorthak, and leaders of the Galactic Council," she said, her voice carrying the tone of a professor addressing students. "You're not fighting a retreat. You're witnessing an experiment." She gestured to displays showing brain scans and genetic analysis. For 50,000 years humanity has been evolving. Not physically but mentally. We've been developing new neural pathways, new ways of thinking about warfare and survival. You've forced us to remember what we are capable of. But more than that, you forced us to improve on it. The alien fleet pressed forward, confident in their overwhelming numerical advantage. They had learned from previous battles, adapting their tactics to counter human unpredictability. Their ships were equipped with the best armor in the galaxy. Weapons that could crack planets and tactical computers that could predict battlefield movements with mathematical precision. They were prepared for everything except what actually happened. The human fleet stopped retreating at the edge of the Sol system, forming a defensive line around Earth and Mars. 50,000 ships against 10 million. The aliens opened fire with weapons that should have vaporized the human fleet instantly. Instead, the humans did something that no alien tactical computer could have predicted. They used the sun as a weapon. Admiral Rebecca Torres, commanding the human fleet from her flagship Defiance, watched as solar collection satellites that had powered Earth for centuries suddenly redirected their energy collection systems. Instead of gathering power for cities and factories, they began focusing solar energy into a beam that could be directed anywhere in the system. "All ships," she broadcast. "Protocol Icarus is now active. Time to show them what a Star War actually looks like. The focused solar energy struck the alien fleet like the wrath of an angry god. Ships that had been designed to withstand planet-killing weapons were vaporized instantly. Entire formations disappeared in bursts of light that outshone distant suns. But that wasn't the most terrifying part of humanity's final gambit. The most terrifying part was that it wasn't their final gambit. As the alien fleet reeled from the solar weapon strike, human ships throughout the galaxy began implementing what they called Protocol Prometheus. Every human vessel, from massive battle cruisers to tiny scout ships, began the same process. They turned themselves into weapons. Not just ramming attacks or suicide runs, though, those happened too. The humans had spent months preparing for this moment, converting their ships into delivery systems for weapons that existed only in human imagination. A mining vessel near Alpha Centauri detonated its fusion core in a precise pattern that turned the system's asteroid belt into a shotgun blast aimed at the nearest alien fleet. A research ship in the Vega system released engineered viruses that converted alien hull plating into explosive compounds. A colony transport in the Proxima system used its terraforming equipment to poison an entire world's atmosphere, denying the aliens a strategic base. Each ship's destruction was precisely calculated to cause maximum damage while teaching other human commanders more about alien weaknesses. They're not trying to win individual battles, Korthak realized as he watched his fleet disintegrate around him. They're trying to win the war by losing battles more efficiently than we can afford. That was when the rebellion reached critical mass. On prison worlds across the galaxy, alien prisoners who had been taught human tactics began coordinating their uprisings. But they weren't just escaping anymore. They were implementing the lessons they had learned from human instructors like Tom Martinez. A Keth Mori rebellion on the Forge world of Centris 7 didn't just break out of prison. They took over the weapons factories and began producing arms for other rebel movements. A Zephyrian uprising on the mining world of Delta Pavonis didn't just demand freedom. They used mining charges to destroy the orbital defense platforms that protected 3 nearby systems. Within hours, 47 worlds were in open revolt. Within days, the number had reached 300. The aliens were fighting a war on 1,000 fronts against an enemy that had spent 50,000 years preparing for exactly this moment. Emperor Vorthak, his flagship damaged and his fleet scattered, made a decision that would echo through galactic history. He opened a direct communication channel to General Stone. "General," he said, his voice heavy with defeat, "we surrender." Stone's response would be quoted in history books for the next 1,000,000 years. "No." Vorthak stared at the screen. I don't understand. 50,000 years ago, Stone explained, you begged us to accept quarantine rather than continue the war. We agreed because we thought you deserved a chance to be better. We were wrong. Then what do you want? Stone's smile widened, and in that expression, Vortex saw the future of the galaxy. We want you to remember, every time you look at the stars, we want you to remember that humanity is out there. Every time you develop a new weapon, we want you to remember that we'll find a way to turn it against you. Every time you think about conquest or oppression or genocide, we want you to remember what happens when you wake up a sleeping predator. The transmission ended, leaving the alien survivors alone with their thoughts and their fears. The war lasted another 6 months. Not because the aliens could still fight, but because it took that long for the human fleets to reach every corner of the galaxy. When it finally ended, the political map of known space had been redrawn entirely. The great empires that had ruled for millennia were broken, their territories divided among the species they had once oppressed. The prison worlds became free colonies. The slave markets became museums dedicated to remembering the cost of cruelty. And throughout it all, human fleets patrolled the space lanes, their presence both a protection and a promise. Admiral Sarah Chen, now commanding the human patrol fleet in the former hegemony space, received a transmission from a newly independent world in what had once been Zephyrian territory. Admiral Chen, said the alien representative, we are grateful for your species' intervention, but we must ask, will humanity rule us now? Sarah's response was transmitted across the galaxy, becoming the foundation of what historians would later call the new Galactic Charter. Rule you? No, we're not interested in ruling anyone. We're interested in making sure that no one else rules through fear and oppression either. She leaned forward, and her smile carried all the warmth and danger that had made humanity legendary. We're are going to be watching. Always. From now on. Any species that thinks it can conquer others, enslave others, or commit genocide will discover what it means to have humans as their enemies. The transmission ended with a simple message that would be carved into